All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to session 6 of Android Summit. My name is Xandri Oji, and I am your Zoom room monitor for this session. I won't take up too much of your time, so Mike, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, folks. My name is Mike Traverso. I'm the lead mobile software engineer at the New York Yankees, and I also host a podcast called Friends That Code. Today, we're going to talk about ways about combating imposter syndrome. Okay. All right, so what is imposter syndrome? What is it I'm trying to help find ways to beat? Imposter syndrome is just the persistent inability to believe that your success is deserved or that your success has somehow been illegitimately achieved, as though it's happened because you're lucky and had nothing at all to do with your work. Bit of a disclaimer though. I'm not a doctor, and imposter syndrome can really wreak havoc on folks and their mental health. With tomorrow being World Mental Health Day, I want to remind people that it's okay to reach out for help if you need it. So please reach out to friends and family. Remember, you're not alone. However, if you feel you need professional help, please seek it. Here's some contact information for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the Crisis Text Line, and Veterans Crisis Line. I want to remind everyone that this is just a goofy talk by a goofy guy identifying imposter syndrome and some tips and tricks I've picked up along the way to kind of not feel like an imposter all of the time. Okay, on to some tips. If you've ever felt imposter syndrome, then you've probably experienced the bad kind of affirmations. An affirmation is just a statement that you hold to be true. Your mind probably races with these throughout the day. So negative affirmations reinforce negative feelings. I'm not smart enough to do this. I can't do this. And the positive ones reinforce positive feelings. I'm smart enough for this. I can totally do this. Identifying the negative affirmations should be easy. What's happening in your mind that makes you feel like a fraud? Here's a few that I have all the time. As a matter of fact, just a few minutes ago before the talk started, I had these running through my mind. I'm a terrible public speaker. I'm not good with Zoom. Why do these nice people want to listen to me? But I can change those. I can reprogram them, if you will. So let's spin this around a bit and make it a bit more positive. I've given a lot of talks in the past. Often folks are nice afterwards. Some tell me that my talk helped them with something they were working on or struggling with. So why do we feel like frauds sometimes? Well, because what we do isn't easy. We work with difficult to understand concepts, new languages, not so easy to solve problems, etc. Things are constantly changing in our world. For example, live data flows or state flow. Developing software isn't easy, and developing for Android is even harder. The fact that you're here is an accomplishment. You write one code base that works for thousands of different Android handsets. You're rock stars. So you may be thinking, hey, Mike, yes, I am a rock star, but how do I not feel like a fraud? Well, let's start by figuring out 3 things that make us awesome. Now, I know this sounds a bit corny, but give it a try. And if you're struggling to come up with 3 things that make you awesome, you're being too modest. Don't ask a friend, don't be lazy. Really give this some thought. See the awesomeness within you. Learn to promote yourself. Even if it's just to yourself right now, if you won't buy what you're selling, why would anyone else? Why would your colleagues, your boss? Show yourself some love. You deserve it. Mine? Well, I've beaten cancer twice in my life. I enjoy teaching, especially teaching how to code. And I left one software job without a replacement just to learn mobile software development. So, keeping in mind our own awesomeness, when we are confronted with a challenge, let's reframe the can I do this with how will I do this? Let's see what the differences are between here. So the can I sounds a lot like, am I going to be able to do this? How am I even here right now? Have I just been lucky and no one's noticed? Is now the time when everyone figures me out? There's a lot of doubt in those feelings. They're void of any indication of past successes at similar tasks. So for you folks, that can't possibly be true because you're sitting here today. how do we reframe the can I with how do I do this? Well, again, you have done something similar before. So if this new task is similar, take what you've learned from that past experience and apply it here and knock that new task out. Or even knowing that you've achieved something similar in the past is enough to power you forward. Taking on a new challenge is exciting. Realize that when you're done, you'll have learned some new things. Be confident in yourself because you've overcome similar challenges before. So why can't you overcome this new challenge as well? All right, 3 things that can break our confidence as developers are warnings, errors, and bugs. Now, I mentioned earlier that coding isn't easy. Most of us spend all day and we're surrounded by IDE warnings, compiler errors, and just when we think we've beaten those back, we have bugs to fix. So here's some of what we might see throughout the day. Some compiler errors and warnings, more warnings and errors, a different flavor of yet more warnings and errors. Ooh, okay, so here's a stack trace for a bug. Oh no, okay, so it looks like whatever we just did, we murdered this folder. Our code is responsible for murdering this once happy little folder. So looking at these all day doesn't inspire confidence. It's no wonder so many of us feel like we're imposters because our IDE is constantly telling us how bad we are at our job. So maybe that could be a new feature in Android Studio, the next version of Android Studio. But here's the thing, with respect to bugs, maintenance of code is about 2/3 or more of software development lifecycle. Mistakes happen, don't let them ruin your day. Learn from them so that you can avoid them in the future. You graduated from a 4-year school. It was hard to get into, but you did it, made it through the 4 years. You belong here. You graduated from an intensive boot camp that showed you how to master a bunch of different technologies that you didn't know existed a few months ago. You belong here. You taught yourself how to code all on your own. You belong here. You beat out all the other candidates for your job. You belong here. Again, you belong here. Focus on a previous success to remind yourself that by no means are you where you are because of some random chance. Everything is changing all the time. Technology is innovation. And since it's always changing, you can't possibly be an expert at everything. A friend of mine, Nitya Narasimhan, wrote about an exciting way to look at the world. And it basically boils down to you're a beginner at the things you're not an expert in. So enjoy learning how to be better at what you're interested in. Lastly, don't be too hard on yourself. Okay, remember that you're not a unicorn, so apply anyways. What am I talking about here? Well, looking at job specs sometimes can be very demoralizing. And it's because everyone's looking for that unicorn developer. Now, you may already know what I'm talking about. This majestic, much sought after developer that knows every language, some languages so well, they know them 2 years before they were even created. They know DevOps, databases, graphic design, UI, UX, and can even help the company softball team win. Now, these job specs are littered all over the internet. Here's a unicorn posting for an experienced iOS developer. So I apologize if anybody here is from Audible. I just happened to pick this one up off Indeed. So here we see the post mentions requiring experience in agile development. Now, this sought after unicorn needs to be so experienced in agile development that they've listed it here twice. We see the iOS developers should have experience with promises. There's just one problem with this. Swift doesn't have promises, and neither does Objective-C for that matter. And first up, they want 4+ years experience as an iOS developer, but it doesn't mention how many years of experience this iOS developer should have in maintaining DevOps. Again, that's some job spec overreach. And second, they want someone enthusiastic about continuous integration and deployment. So smile when you talk to the hiring manager about continuous integration deployment. Tell them how thrilled you are about it as an iOS developer applying for that iOS developer job. Okay, lots of times you'll see something listed as a preferred qualification that if you had some spare time to read a well-written blog post on the topic, you'd understand it and have that quote unquote qualification to meet that preferred qualification. Have they mentioned Agile yet? Don't sweat these job posts. If you think you can satisfy half or more, apply. Now, keep in mind, these are written by either junior people in HR, people in an HR farm, people that just don't know technology, or worse, someone that does know technology, but is just trying to satisfy a hiring manager that wants it all, and they're just trying to do their job. Again, don't let these job specs make you feel inadequate. Apply anyways. Feel confident that you're not wasting your time because you could learn on the job. Now, if I say whiteboard, half of the people listening to this really get nervous. So when you get called in for that in-person interview, or you know you're going to have to live code, be as prepared as you possibly can. And know if you've done everything you could have done to prepare for the interview, and it either doesn't go well or you don't get the job, remember that there are other opportunities. And sometimes it just isn't meant to be. There are tons of places to work for with wonderful people doing very fulfilling work. So you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but don't let it bum you out. And to find those opportunities, please network, network, network. Right? Finding a job on Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, Dice, it's actually a myth. The best jobs you're going to find are the jobs someone in your network turn you on to. Network with folks, establish meaningful relationships in the community. Go to meetups, even if they're virtual, and introduce yourself. If you're running a virtual meetup, budget some time in there to have everyone introduce themselves. Give their name, where they're from, what languages they work with, just so that everybody can get that sense of community. And the organizers of Android Summit are running a Slack. So introduce yourself on the Slack. Folks will show you some love, give you some emoji responses. It's a great thing. And hopefully you've had a chance to check out their hallway sessions as well. And when life gets back to normal and we're back together again, introduce yourself to other people. Too often we sit in a room waiting for a meetup to start or a talk to begin. We just sit and we stare at our phones and ignore all the potential leads for new jobs, new clients, or new friends that are sitting right there in the room with us. Connect with folks on Twitter and LinkedIn, not Facebook, not Snapchat, not TikTok. Twitter and LinkedIn is where you go to network for jobs. It just is. Be supportive by reading colleagues' blog posts or telling them something positive about what you thought about it, starring their GitHub repos, reshare and like their social media posts. Be a positive force in the community because everyone wants to work with or be next to or somehow intertwined with someone who is a positive person and isn't shy about praising their hard work. Okay. Keep learning, don't get stale. As the industry changes, as languages change, as the SDKs change with them. Join a meetup group. Sign up for a Udacity course. Take advantage of your company's training budget and time. Read a book or a blog series on something. Whatever way of learning new things is your jam, get to it. Pursue your interests and learn more about them. Are you interested in machine learning? Take a class, sign up for an online learning course, read a book on machine learning. A great way to solidify what you know is to teach someone else. And if you have to give a talk or write a blog post about something, you're going to end up doing two things. The first is that you're going to research the topic as much as possible to try to look as good as possible. The second is that you're writing everything down, whether it's on the blog post or on the slide. And that means you'll have a better chance at remembering everything you're researching. And if you don't, well, guess what? You've already written it down, so that's awesome. So stay thirsty, stay actively learning new things. Learning new things is going to help you feel like you're doing your part to stay relevant in an ever-changing field. And don't align yourself with your work product. Now, put simply, you are not your work. with your work product, I want to make sure folks remember that your boss isn't trying to make your life miserable. Most of the time, they're not giving you unrealistic deadlines or changing priorities on a whim. They've got a boss, and that boss has a boss who has a boss. You get the idea. And all of these people deal with the request of a VC or a customer. So keeping in mind that business leaders change direction a lot, change with it. Leave previous problems unsolved if required. How many times have you been in the middle of some task to be pulled away to some other more important task? It's incredibly frustrating. So if this happens during the course of a sprint enough times, it can feel like you're not accomplishing what you thought you could have accomplished. And that allows imposter syndrome to kick up. And while you may have ideas on how things can be run more efficiently, just remember one thing. As long as you're still employed and you're still getting the paycheck, whether you're working on task A or task B, your paycheck is still going to show up. So go with the flow. Move on to the next task or challenge with grace, as best you can. And to my point earlier about not aligning yourself with your work product, try getting yourself a hobby. Reading non-technical books, exercising, woodworking, starting a podcast, whatever floats your boat. Become a full person without letting your job define you. And if you can't figure out something or you're truly too busy, schedule some time to go outside, stand in the rain, walk in the sun. It doesn't matter. Get away from your desk inside and go outside. Vitamin D can help your mood and make you feel happy again. And on the note of detaching yourself from your work a bit, detach yourself from social media as well. So here's an example of too much social media. Okay, you just finished up a project where you put your skills in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to the test. You're super happy with what you've done. So you figure you're going to go on social media, see what's going on while you've been working your butt off. So you check your Google News feed, and there's this clickbaity article that says, C++ developers earn the most money. Well, that's a big bummer because you don't code in C++. All right, so let's go over to Twitter and see what's going on over there. All right, real developers use Linux and Vim. Well, I don't use Vim and I have a Mac, so another bummer. Let's scroll down a little bit. This will be better. The infamous "what's stopping you from coding like this?" where you code to fill up little green boxes to show off to people you don't know. Sweet. And sometimes you'll see a tweet where someone questions whether you're a senior developer. That is laughable. Where someone questions whether you're a senior developer or not because you use a mouse or you don't use a mechanical keyboard. I mean, and this, it can really be a bummer, right? It's demoralizing. You go to social media for fun, you go to find connection, and that's all true. But please remember, social media also encourages us to compare ourselves to our peers and sometimes random internet trolls. And did anyone get uncomfortable when I mentioned using a mouse or seeing those green boxes start to show up? Anything can be used for second guessing yourself, from the languages you code in to the OS, and yes, even something as silly as whether or not you use a mouse. If you find yourself second guessing yourself, or you're not feeling good about yourself, stop scrolling. Take long breaks from social media. Through my own life experiences, I've come to realize the most important lesson one can learn, something incredibly important, and I'm going to share it with you. Stop giving a damn what someone else thinks about you. Take a look around this virtual conference. There's some great people here. You're virtually surrounded by amazing people. From the organizers, to the speakers, to the attendees. And as great as they all are, stop caring what they think of you. Scrolling endlessly isn't healthy. Be happy with what you are doing. Social media helps us compare ourselves to other people, and don't compare yourself to other folks. Don't do it, especially to be happy for yourself. Now, the most controversial thing you're going to hear at a mobile developer conference: put your phone in a drawer and forget it's there for a while. Now, I mentioned trying to avoid comparing yourself to others. It's not healthy, right? And a better standard to compare yourself to is, well, it's you. Compare yourself to yourself yesterday, last week, last month, last year. 5 years ago, 10 years ago. My example, 10 years ago, I didn't know how to write a mobile app. 5 years ago, I wrote the iOS and Android app for Twitter's developer conference and a presidential campaign. Last month, I had no experience at all with a particular part of the iOS SDK. And last week, I shipped an app update where I'm using that new framework that I learned. So focus on what you're doing and not what other people are doing. Are you growing, and are you growing in the direction you want to be growing in? And enjoying some self-care helps us recenter ourselves. It helps us remember what's important. So do something positive that's not tech related. Take time to talk to friends, go for a walk, read a book, get your me time in and decompress often. Too often we're too stressed out with crazy schedules and tons of work. This isn't the healthiest way to live. And decompressing from time to time can really help keep you in a positive mood. Be more and be more forgiving to yourself, and ultimately keep imposter syndrome at bay. Speaking of, it's Friday, so I'll start wrapping it up here and let you take advantage of that and take advantage of the hallway track maybe to get some networking in. So one last thing, don't be too hard on yourselves. Learn to be okay with screwing up and having off days. I mentioned in the beginning, I work in baseball. Most hitters are only successful 2 out of 10 times when they get to the plate. Some of the more successful hitters in the game are only successful 3 out of 10 times. And 4 out of 10 times is legendary Hall of Fame status. So please remember, don't beat yourself up. And that's it. Thanks everyone for listening. Just a quick heads up, I do have a podcast where I showcase some amazing developers that I know and get them to offer up advice, talk about their careers and more. It's all over on all the different podcast platforms. And if you're interested, you can head over to anchor.fm/friends.code, and you can find the link to the platform of your choice. And I actually interview a few of the speakers and folks that are here at the conference today on the show. So check it out and subscribe. And now I will take any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, thank you for that talk. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the Zoom chat or in the Slack channel. You've got a fan of your podcast.
Okay.
Shouting you out. And I got one question.
Sure.
How do you deal with rejection?
So, I mean, rejection hurts, and you kind of just have to let that happen. The best way to do it is to surround yourself with friends, and be honest with yourself about it. So, fun story. I had an interview with Apple a few years back, and I bombed the interview. It's terrible. I won't get into why, but really, I think what happened was I wasn't prepared as much as I should have, and I think really kind of giving that truthful evaluation of how I performed, that helped, because if I would have said, well, why didn't they hire me? I think I would have probably been a little bitter. But really some of it was on me. And sometimes rejection just sucks, and you just kind of have to, again, surround yourself with friends, good people that are going to be positive and remind you about, again, all of the other amazing things that you've done. And to be really sour about a rejection because some team didn't think you were a good fit, you never know what's going to happen. So don't really hang your head too low for too long. I mean, let it, really, feel those feelings, but don't let it eat away at you forever. You have to move on and understand that there's other opportunities out there. But it does suck. So, well, won't lie.
So I got another question here. How
Sure.
do we beat the feeling when PR comments are sometimes insensible, yet so much demanding for a simple piece of code?
Ignore them. I mean, that's just move on. If it's your repo and someone's giving you trying to, create a PR against your repo and they're being an ass, move on. Do you really need that feature? Um, Probably not. That's all. Move on. Life's too short. It really life. I mean, that's one of the things I hope you walk away with from this is that really life is too short to let random internet trolls suck the life out of your day. Just walk away. Uh, that's it. And they're going to have shit to talk about. And that's okay. Cool. You don't have to listen to it. I know it's probably not the easiest advice to follow, but if you can get some Zen, it is nice. And if you get something like that on your team, like a work team, I think you probably need to raise that with a boss. That shouldn't happen.
All right. Don't see any more questions coming in.
Cool.
So if anyone has any more questions, hop into the Slack channel that's there. I think I put the link in the very top, so that's available. Yeah. Thank you again, Mike. That was a really great talk.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna.